What's up, everyone? My name is Alan, founder and consultant at For Now Marketing, and welcome to Braze for Technical Marketers. So today we're going to do something crazy. We are going to take a look at everything related to Braze emails, and we may actually just go page by page of the Braze documentation, everything that lives under the email channel. We don't know how long this is going to take. We don't know how much in depth we can actually go. But I do have my water ready in case I get thirsty, and let's get started and just go over everything there is to know about Braze. This might be a long video, but hopefully at least bits and pieces of this video is helpful for any of your future email related questions. I'll be sure to have timestamps in the description so you know exactly where to find information about certain sections. Or if you're up for it, get some popcorn and watch the whole video, and hopefully you learn a lot about Braze email at the end of this video. So before we jump straight into the Braze email documentations, this is what the Braze email builder looks like in a campaign page. And then there is the drag and drop, the HTML, and then they've also added a section for templates as well. Braze has multiple messaging channels, and email is one of the main channels that many teams use. Some people even call Braze an ESP, an email service provider. Whether we agree with that exact term to describe Braze, that is up to whoever's using it, but it definitely has email sending capabilities. It's just not only an email service provider, so it has ESP capabilities, but it's been called many things. I think Braze likes to refer to their own product as the customer engagement tool or customer engagement platform. So email, you can use Braze to send email. Many teams, almost every single team that I've ever worked with, and that's like 100 plus Braze customers at this point, use Braze for email. It's very rare that a team uses Braze and not email with Braze. Maybe they're only using Braze for push or in-app message, but almost every single team will use email plus another channel. So let's dive right in. So we have Braze, and we'll try not to go through every single line of every documentation page. And then some of these pages that are linked, we will get to them eventually, but there are some templates, custom HTML templates, drag and drop, and then subscription. That's a big conversation we'll get to in that page, I'm sure later in the video. And then some use cases. They laid out a, bunch of use cases here, but this is just a small fraction of what all these teams are using Braze for, right? There's, depending on the industry, depending on the size of your team, depending on your user, Braze can be used for all sorts of creative emails, marketing, transactional, and then so many different subtypes below each of those topics. Cool. So let's get started with the email setup. And email setup, let's see, it looks like there's an email onboarding Braze learning course actually. So I'm sure that would be helpful if you are just onboarding Braze and you're going through the onboarding session provided by Braze or a partner-led onboarding team. But email setup usually gets done during your first, few months with Braze. Braze is there to usually help you out with the integration, making sure your IPs and subdomains are set up. And that way you can actually start sending emails out of the name and address that you prefer. So what does setting up IPs and domains look like? And this video is a very helpful video. It's been around for some time at this point. But during your email onboarding, you are going to coordinate with Braze, and pretty much Braze will ask you what is the subdomain name that you want to send from. So, for example, our domain for our website is going to be fornowmarketing.com. However, you cannot send an email from something at fornowmarketing.com, like hello@fornowmarketing.com. Braze requires that you send from a subdomain, as in it should be hello at mail.fornowmarketing.com or info.fornowmarketing.com or marketing.fornowmarketing.com. As long as it's not just directly from your parent domain fornowmarketing.com, but it comes from hello at something.domain.com. And there are deliverability reasons for that, but they will ask for your subdomain. And then also they ask for approximate number of emails, how many IPs you'll need. Yep. So depending on the volume you're sending, they may or may not recommend 1 to 2 to 3 IPs. I believe most teams start out with 2 IPs, one for marketing, one for transactional. And how you prefer to map your sending domains to your allocated IP. Yep. And then your marketing subdomain usually takes one IP, and your transactional subdomain usually takes the other IP. For the most part, you have a one-to-one relationship from subdomain to IP. Although we have seen cases where if you are sending a lot of email, you may have multiple IPs powering a single subdomain. Or it's also possible that multiple subdomains like marketing dot or transactional dot are both using a single IP. Not what's recommended, we believe. You usually want to keep them separate, but just explaining that that is possible. So you let Braze know exactly what you want. They take that information. They generate DNS records on your behalf. They send it back to you, and then you take that to your engineering or IT team and get those DNS records uploaded to, where the rest of your other records live. It could be in your content delivery network, your CDN. Can't always remember, content delivery network, or wherever your IT team is most familiar, but that's usually outside of the marketing team's scope. And it looks like they're coming up with a self-service email setup. That is actually very, very cool. So this looks like you might be able to, add and verify sending domains. So it sounds like you maybe add your own subdomains, and then they spit out these DNS records, and then you are able to get it directly from the Braze dashboard versus having to wait for your customer onboarding manager to provide them for you. And then it looks like there's also a verify page, so you can actually verify once that's been done. Because usually the process is your customer onboarding manager gives you the DNS, you take the DNS, you upload it, you get told that it's uploaded, then you tell your comm that it's uploaded, and then they have to confirm, but it looks like all that's possible right here. The sending domain must be a subordinate to a domain you own. For example, if you own example.com, a subdomain could be mail.exe. Yep, that's exactly what we just explained. Add an IP address and next step. So that is how an email gets set up in your dashboard, so you can actually start sending with the email address of your choice. We do not have the capability to set specific email addresses for our partner demo dashboard. So you can actually see that our subdomain right here, we are using kind of a Braze provided default one, right? This doesn't say at something.fornowmarketing.com. It says partner EU02 AB marketing 01, and that's kind of Braze's default subdomain. Everybody will see the ab marketing 01 until they integrate their own subdomain. Cool. Let's talk about IP warming. It's a very, very, very big topic for all email marketers, but also when you first onboard Braze, right? IP warming, we always like to describe it as more of an art than a science. We get a lot of questions like, what do I need to do? Like, do I need to do X, Y, Z to, achieve results A, B, C? And it's never a direct yes or no. And there are a lot of email deliverability experts at Braze and also just in the email community who have a lot of insight and experience and just ways to kind of navigate this IP warming. But pretty much what IP warming is, you are warming up your IP. So the IP that you just integrated with your email subdomain, the internet world, the inbox placement world, the email service provider and the inbox service provider, two different things. And there's also internet service providers, I guess. They don't just want a brand new subdomain in the world, in the internet, sending new emails to users, from the start, out the gate, in high volume. You actually warm up to a level. You have to earn the trust and the respect of these inbox service providers to let them know you're not a scammer, you're not sending, inappropriate emails, you're not sending at a volume that the users don't want to receive at. So it's a way to protect the email recipients of the world, right? So, there's some information here about suspicion of spam, throttle, and you definitely want to follow their guidelines as closely as possible. And there's actually, this table is something we refer to all the time, right? IP warming schedule. So there is a schedule in which you can warm up your IP, and it's a very gradual volume. So, on the very first day of the email, you can send 50 emails without kind of triggering a red flag or going beyond their guidelines. And then you eventually warm up to the volume that you want. Now, for some of the bigger brands who might be sending millions of emails on a daily basis, you might see, well, you're telling me it's going to take 15 days to warm up my IP to be able to send their daily volume. And the answer is just a tough yes, that is the case. If you follow these guidelines, you will avoid getting your emails marked as spam. You will avoid hurting your deliverability score. But if you try to bypass that and go at the volume that's beyond the volume recommended here, it is a much higher chance that you may fall into some of those issues. And then the worst case scenario, your IP reputation is damaged, and you may end up having to purchase a new IP and start all over. So we always recommend, it's just best to follow safe practices, clean practices, follow this guideline. And then the rule of thumb is no more than double the previous day's volume. Even though there are situations where it's skips more than double. So for example, from 2 to 3, it 5x's from 4 to 5. And then from there, it does not do more than 2x from here from a quick mental math. But the rule of thumb is no more than double the previous day's volume. Once warming is complete and you've reached your desired daily volume, you should aim to maintain that volume daily. Some fluctuation is expected. Reaching the desired volume, then only doing a mass blast once a week may negatively affect your delivery metrics and sender reputation. So what that means is it's a huge misunderstanding that teams think that, oh, I IP warmed in the beginning of our Braze onboarding, so I don't ever need to IP warm again. And that is just incorrect. IP warming is actually a forever thing, right? You warm it up to the level that you want to, and you keep it warm around that level, or at least gradually warm it up more or less to the volume that you want. But you never are really done IP warming. So then you really want to think about the volume that you're sending. How many volumes per day are your automated marketing emails sending? And triggered emails are a little bit more expectable, right? It's more, there's a projection. You can see how many, times your users are triggering the trigger action per day, and you can kind of make a gradual projection. Versus marketing batch and blast, even though they are a big part of a lot of marketing team strategies, will cause a huge spike in your daily volume. For example, if you're sending a upcoming, holiday email to all your users, that is going to be a big spike in your daily volume. And you may want to think about how to break that up over multiple days, just to make sure that your IP warming deliverability score is healthy. So there's a best practice section. Start with small sending volumes. You want to start gradually. Have engaging introductory content. So it's all about how much do your users want your email, and that desire to engage with your email is shown with opens, clicks, and just the overall engagement with your email. So if you send to a highly loyal, engaged user base and send them some extra engaging email for your IP warming period, that tells the inbox providers, they are sending emails that people actually want to see. They're not unsubscribing or marking as spam. And it's consistent. That's the way you typically want to start your IP warming. And then also, you want to make sure you're sending to the right people. You're sending to people that actually exist, that inbox addresses that actually can receive emails. So typos, old emails, blocked emails, please make sure to clean up your list, especially if you're starting fresh with a new dashboard in Braze. And then especially during IP warming phase, but also just ongoing, you always want to monitor your deliverability. So are you sending at a healthy, are you maintaining your green healthy score? How's your daily volume looking? What's your bounce rate? What's your complaint rate? What's your, soft bounce, hard bounce, mark to spam rate? All of those things you do want to think about and watch. We won't spend too much time on the email authentication portion, as those are typically all part of the onboarding process, and we do want to focus more on what's really valuable for the Braze user, who will be really building and launching campaigns. Of course, all of these things are important part of the email onboarding. But for the sake of scope and time of this video, let's go ahead and move on. So let's check out email validation. I have a feeling I feel similarly with Yeah, it looks like this is talking about how we validate, an email syntax and make sure that it's in the right format, like, letters and numbers, addresses. So some more technical documentation here. Importing this is a similar description as making sure that there are no typos, making sure you're cleaning your email list, especially if you're migrating, which most likely you are coming from a different email service provider, that you take the opportunity to really just sunset your unsubscribed old unengaged users, and then find the way to tag your engaged users so you can prioritize those. So suppression lists, yep, methods for importing. And you can upload via API, CSV. So there's a few ways to kind of bulk upload your users. SSL is also part of the integration that will be mainly supported by your Braze onboarding team as well. All right. Cool. So let's talk about consent and address collection and just overall the subscription and the address process. And this is a good opportunity to talk about the three default global email subscription states that exist in Braze, which are opted in, subscribed, and unsubscribed. So by default, let's actually start from the middle default stage. By default, when a user profile first gets created in Braze, they are marked as subscribed. And users are subscribed to email as long as they have a valid email address stored on their profile. Users remain subscribed until they unsubscribe or opted in. So when you first create an email, and maybe in a user sign up process, you have received consent from the users that they are willing to receive email when they sign up for your service. That will still leave them as subscribed state. Just by default, it'll be created as subscribed state unless noted otherwise in your API or in your CSV. Now, there is the state of opted in, and you might think, well, what's the difference between subscribed and opted in? And opted in is a reserved state for if you've received explicit double consent from your user. So by default, if the user can already receive email, they're subscribed. But you want to actually document and keep in mind who really opted in and gave you explicit consent to receive emails. And maybe these are your strong, more engaged users. We have a state reserved for that, for those users. And that's what we call the opted in state. And typically, if you have a double opt-in setup process, that's what the opt-in state is for. And then, of course, if a user marks your email or unsubscribes from your email, that's what the global unsubscribe state is for. And I say global as in that's just if you are using the global default states, the three of these. But later when we do get into talking about email preference centers and subscription groups, those have a different sub-level subscription state. So that's how I'm distinguishing between the global subscription versus subscription groups. It looks like over here we're describing how not to collect addresses. So don't purchase them, don't co-register them. So it's as if the user is registering for multiple things. Pre-selected or force opt-in. So it's like by default the opt-in box in a sign-up page is already checked off. By leaving the box checked, subscribers are opted in, giving consent. Tendency to annoy people. So these are all best practices, or really more like what not to do. Single opt-in versus a confirmed opt-in. I guess confirmed opt-in is actually what we do want to do for a healthy collection process. Let's briefly talk about deliverability pitfalls and spam traps. So these are the different types of traps that the email deliverability world has set up so that if you aren't practicing healthy list processes and you do have typos or you do have email addresses that have never been used or that were once real users but are now dormant in your list, these are what's called traps, and those will trigger some red flags in your deliverability, because if you're sending to these people that you really shouldn't be in the first place, then it's like, okay, here you go, you are being marked for some of those things. And there are different types of traps. And how to avoid spam traps. Double opt-in is always an easy, simple way, because in order for a user to double opt-in, it needs to be a real human who receives your first email, clicks to confirm, and then only then they are receiving emails moving forward. Old emails, dormant emails, bots, they don't typically do the double opt-in, so that's why they recommend that. Implement a sunset policy. If you've been sending an email to a user for over a year and they have not clicked on any emails that you sent over the past year, then one, they're not interested in your emails, or two, there's really nobody receiving those emails. So that's what a sunset policy is. You are quite literally sunsetting your old users. And then three, never purchase email lists. If you don't know the users that you're sending to, they're not your organic, signed up users, then just don't send to them. Only send emails to the users that you know signed up and wanted your service. And then Braze does have an amazing customer success and deliverability team that can help you with all of these information. All right, I think it's finally time to jump into the dashboard and talk about what email looks like. So drag and drop editor for email is where we're gonna start. And we are creating an email with drag and drop. So let's take a look at what this talks about, and then let's go into Braze and take a look. So we are in Braze. We are going to create a simple email campaign. So under campaigns, we can go to create campaign, email. And let's start with drag and drop, becoming the more and more popular choice simply because it's just so easy to get started. There's no learning curve, or there's a small learning curve in how to use the drag and drop builder, but there's no developer blockers or resources required. Anyone can come in here and design a beautiful email and then get it launched within the same day. So you come into the drag and drop builder and you'll notice that, so we're in the design and build. Under the content page, there's also sending settings, and then there's also preview and test. Let's start at the content page. So you will notice that you have rows in drag and drop builders, pretty much how a drag and drop builder works. And this is very similar for any drag and drop, builders you may have used, but your email is composed of rows with different columns. So this is a row with a single column, and you can actually even see the column structure. What just happened here? I toggled it. So click column structure. You can see we have a single column with a 12 with column size, I guess. But you can also see there's rows with, one small left column, bigger left column. We have 3 equal sized columns. And then we actually even have all the way down to 6 smaller columns. And if you look at the column structure there, it's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It looks like 2 is the minimum size. I can go into the ones. Ooh, then I wonder if that means, okay, I did not know this, but you can have up to 12 columns within a single email, all with a very thin 1 unit wide, column. So I guess, it's kind of flexible. You can chop up your email vertically that way, although we rarely see the case for that. But also every column has its own properties you can set. So you can come to column 1 and you want that background to be transparent, but maybe you want the padding for column 1 to be bigger for some reason. And maybe that's not the case for the remaining columns. So you can see each column is set differently. And then same with the borders. So let's say you do want to add a border to the top. And then let's actually give it a color so we can see it. So padding and borders are the 2 main columns you can set at the column level. Let's go back up to the top, and you can actually see that every row, you can set a background color. So let's see what happens if we change this to blue. So that row becomes that color, content area background color. And there's actually a difference between the row color and the content area color. So it looks like I can change that to maybe that, and you can see, the area that covers the content changes. Row background image, you can actually choose to set an image instead, and then there's also options for applying that image only on the content area or the row. We won't spend too much time going over every single detail of the drag and drop builder, but there are many different customizations and details you can include. And the very first time I learned to use a drag and drop editor, I was able to take a designer's, email design with pixel requests for every single padding, row, whatever, and I was able to perfectly mimic that design. So, and I was pretty impressed. 0 HTML, did it all within a few hours, and I was able to match that email almost as perfectly as the designer requested in the Figma file. So you do have lots of customizations and capabilities there. Let's actually go to the content and then look at, and then I'm going to get rid of some of these wild rows here. Let's look at the types of things, the types of content you can feed into an email. So of course you have your title. So title looks like your email headers, right? Like maybe monthly newsletter. And then you have your paragraph. So this is just your P tag in HTML or just your text. Welcome to another round of monthly updates. And maybe it's up to you if you want to use a different paragraph tag, if you want to actually use a single paragraph tag for multiple paragraphs. There could be pros and cons to both, but you can add, as many as you'd like there. Looks like we have a list as well. So this is your, standard bullet. And I believe you should be able to, yep, it looks like you can just indent using a tab, for sub list. And looks like you can keep going for quite a while. We have a buttons for all your CTAs. That button can also be designed and colored, and padding added to fit your brand's, branding guidelines. Let's see. Divider, always helpful to divide new sections. So maybe that first section was the monthly newsletter. You can also actually duplicate your content blocks, and then you can delete here, and you can also leave comments here. So you can say like, let's change the copy for our title here. And then, the team, you can actually collaborate with your team this way. So I'm going to move this down here and then maybe say this is like tips and tricks, for example, right? Spacers, image, video, social. So a lot of times you use images. And if you click on the image, you can actually insert the image directly from our media library, as well as you can use the image with Liquid. So if you have like an image link or you have conditional images depending on certain attributes, you can actually set some Liquid scripts in here. There is also the HTML block. So if there's some more complex modules or blocks you want to include that the drag and drop just isn't quite cut out to build, then you can just simply drop in an HTML code, and then there is your HTML section here. You can expand so you can get a better view. And then there are certain things that you want to actually use the HTML block for, like connected content, maybe even content blocks. Certain things work better as an HTML block versus others. So more likely that if it's like liquid, snippet, technical, then you want to use the HTML block. If it's just copy, you should be good to use just a title or a paragraph box. I think that's mostly it for the drag and drop builder. There's also the settings page, so you can actually set how wide your emails to look. 600 seems to be kind of that default look that a lot of teams go for. I think it was set to 600. I may be wrong, actually. Oh, maybe I can actually undo and see if I can get it back to that previous state. And I think it was actually set to 600. Yeah. Nice. Alignment, background color, background image, and then, yeah, so we even have languages here, although, might need to look at exactly what language we are talking about. So we may have to come back to this feature here, or maybe we can actually look at. So let's actually click on link management. And actually, before we click on link management, I want to go ahead and insert a link. So let's say something like, let's go to our website and let's grab our link and then let's put it here. Visit For Now Marketing for more information. Information. Okay. So now we go to link management. And, oh, I don't have any links in this email. That's not true. Let's see if we can get these bullets are a little bit hard to navigate, but it's because I'm in a bullet. I'm going to actually insert a paragraph and see if that helps. And I'll also put it behind the button in case that's what really registers it. But okay, now that got registered. I actually want to test if I need to have it in a button. And it looks like I do because I still have it here and that didn't show up. But if I get that button back that has a link, and I go to link management, add link templates and link aliases to personalize links in your emails. So what this page is for is, first, you can see that any link, for more information. Let me actually pause and see what's happening there. So I'm going to, let's get rid of that just to avoid any confusion. But pretty much, so that link was in here. That's why we're having some issues. So, okay. Now the link behind the button is really truly only our website link. Now we go to link management. So every link that exists in your email will be automatically scraped by Braze and be put on this page, and it will be given what's called a link alias. And it's pretty much a name for the link, right? I'm not going to call this link our website link or fornowmarketing.com every time. Braze just gives it a link alias, so link 3, link 4. I can probably, if I were to give it an actual readable name, it would be F&M, like website, for example. And you can actually check mark this link if you want to start tracking this link across your workspace. So it says all links are included in click tracking. Select the links that you want to also track for audience filtering and segmentation. There's no limit to the links you can select. Each user's 100 most recent clicks will be available on their profile for retargeting. View all tracked linked aliases. So if you check this box off, you can actually create a segment of users who clicked on this link from your email, which is very, very useful in many different ways. So it's not always a requirement, but for maybe embedded email surveys or users who clicked on certain CTAs and you want to track them and retarget them, that's what this feature is for. And then there is also a link template, which I think we can get to in a little bit later part of this video. But I do want to show briefly the personalization builder tool here. This actually shows wherever you can insert liquid, but you can actually insert a full Braze liquid and how to grab the right data attributes using the right syntax. So we will have a dedicated video for this one. And then copy, AI copywriting assistant. This will also show up wherever relevant, but you can actually use Braze's, AI feature to generate some copy if you need, new copy there. Let's, after this, so after we've built this email, we click on the eyeball for the preview page. And this preview page, shows you exactly how the email will look from the user's perspective. You can actually see desktop, mobile, as well as plain text. I'm sure desktop and mobile are the two most checked views. But we also wouldn't only rely on this page. You always want to send an actual test user. Before you send the test, you can preview as a random user that exists in your dashboard. So you kind of navigate through. If you have conditional logic in here, that email might change. If you want to see what it looks like for a specific user, you can come here and then look for a specific user to view this email. So if this person sees your email, it'll look like that. And then you can also customize the user. So maybe your email has a bunch of custom attributes and custom event properties that can determine conditions. And depending on that, your email will look different. That's what you come in here to test. And then you can go to test send. You can send to specific content test groups, which can be made in a different setting, different page of the dashboard. Or you can actually just hard code email addresses. And it doesn't even have to be in your Braze dashboard. So if I want to send it to my work email as well as my personal email, actually, I think I need to press enter before. So let's try that one more time. And then personal enter. Yeah. So now it not just comma separated, but enter, return separated. So it'll send to these addresses. And you can actually just choose to send what you see here versus override recipient's attributes with current preview user's attributes. So it's like whatever user that you set to, sorry, let me take that back. If you don't check off this box, then these users will get what they will see. These addresses will see themselves. Versus if you have a different user set, let's say I use my teammate to view this email, and then I want the test users to see what Peyton's gonna see, then that's when you check off this box. So you have some options there. Dark mode preview, that's very cool. And then another new feature, copy preview link. So if you copy preview link, take this link, now you can send it to anybody externally. They don't have to be a Braze user. They could be, it's somebody in your marketing leadership or someone on a cross-functional team. But you can actually just go to the link that you just generated, and tada, that'll be the email that you'll see in a link shareable format, which makes it very easy. You don't have to actually send them a test email. I believe every time you update this email, they'll just get an updated email. Let's actually try it. Do you see this update? And then, so I click the eyeball, and maybe if I refresh here, we may have to regenerate, or we may have to, maybe, what if I save? I wonder if I save, if that's going to, no, maybe not. Maybe this is just maybe that link needs to be regenerated every time. So copy preview link. Let's see. Generating new link. So it is a one-time link for when you generated it. Great. And then we kind of went a little bit backwards here, but if you click sending settings, this is where you set your subject line. Subject line is a very important part of the email. It's kind of like a YouTube title or a YouTube thumbnail. Your display name, these are the IP and the subdomains that you set previously in your onboarding period. And you can also see it in the email settings page, which I can go over in just a second. You can actually customize your from name, so you don't have to choose the ones that are set in your email settings page. Let's actually go over that email settings page real quick. So I'm going to open up the Braze dashboard one more time, but go to settings, email preferences. And this is where you've set up your default display name as so we have a for now marketing, this is the display name. And then the local part of the email address is for now marketing, one word, at our default subdomain. And you can add more. You can set some as default. You might have one for marketing, have one for transactional. You might have multiple for marketing, depending on maybe which team fired the email, as well as the reply to address. And reply tos you can actually set to a parent domain, because this email is not sending an email. It's only receiving an email. So you can put your domain directly that way. Require use of addresses listed above for the from and reply to fields. Maybe this locks in the customization. And then BCC, email to your users can be sent with these addresses in the BCC field. So if you do want to BCC like a carbon copy of every single email that you send, you can set up a new inbox, add them here, and then it looks like you can even actually make it a requirement to do that. We'll go over these settings in just a second, but so here, that kind of explains the rest of this page, where these are coming from. So if I were to customize, and let's say I want them to see maybe the account representative they have, with your company, or they want to see a different display name that we're maybe A/B testing, and we can actually use Liquid for that. Or I don't know, maybe they want to see something like your favorite product type is bag, and then that product type could be shirts, pants, shoes, whatever it might be. That's how you customize the display name. BCC addresses in here. One-click list unsubscribe setting. So this is a pretty important unsubscribe setting that recently got put into place, and you can actually set that up here. So email unsubscribe header. So the best example I can share is inside Google. If you've ever seen the unsubscribe button on your top. So here is a great example. Here you see unsubscribe, and that is what we call the list header unsubscribe. They recently made it a requirement for email senders to have this easy unsubscribe options, giving more and more power to the people, to the recipients of email to unsubscribe. And that's what that setting is talking about. The email unsubscribe header. And then the preheader, if you want to include a preheader, which many teams do have a subject line preheader combo. And then adding white space after preheader. So many times when you look at an email, you maybe don't want to see the body of your email cutting into the preheader. By enabling that feature, you don't end up getting the body text kind of cutting into these preheader views of your email. And I'm here seeing this setting for the first time. So by default, all emails used to include test or seed that came from Braze to just show that this is a test email, not a real email. It looks like now we have an option to toggle it off. And it looks like Braze says if the subject line contains test or seed, some inbox providers may block the email or mark it as spam. That has been a problem where test emails would go to spam, or marketing teams or recipients would be concerned, like, does this email actually say test, or is it just say test because it's a test version? So now that looks like it's just been turned off, or the. And then one of the last fields to talk about, we do have CSS inlining, so this might impact how your CSS is written. And then the resubscribe, which we actually don't see being used too much. Then the open tracking pixel, you do have the option of moving up your open tracking pixel, which is a tiny invisible pixel that lives in your email. And by default, the pixel is located at the bottom of the email HTML, but you do have the option to move it to the top. I'm actually curious if there are reasons for why somebody might want it in the bottom, or why doesn't everybody have it at the top. It is a 1x1 pixel image that automatically gets inserted, and that's how Braze determines whether your email's been open or not. Let's actually see if this page describes it.